All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Voice event. I'm Paul Hickey, CEO of Data Driven Design and founder of the Voice event, formerly known as the Nashville Voice Conference. And today is all about introducing opportunities for businesses to increase efficiency, effectiveness, and relevancy via integrating voice applications, Alexa skills, and Google Actions specifically into their digital presence. Thank you so much for your time joining this virtual conference today. This was originally scheduled to be in Nashville, Tennessee at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, but of course, the world had many other plans for the year 2020 and beyond, so we've all adjusted. And the cool thing is that we have people from all over the world joining now virtually. So we have myself in Valencia, Spain. We have several people from Tennessee. We have people from India, the UK, a lot of different states in the United States are represented, well represented. Alabama, California, New York, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. There's people from all over the United States and all over the world at the Voice event. I'd like to briefly welcome my co-host, QuHarrison Terry. He's going to be connecting his audio here in a second, and I'm going to introduce him in a minute. I'm going to kick things off briefly, though, with a video recap of last year's event, the Nashville Voice Conference. And I think this will be a good way to kick off the event here today. And I am also producing, so I'm going to do my best to produce the event and host the event here, but here we shall go.
There's a progression happening now where it went from you had to have a website, then you had to have some engagement, so blogs and things like that, and then all the way to you need an Instagram presence, you also need a video presence, and now we're seeing the next generation of that as podcasting becomes $1 billion industry and voice becomes another way for people to connect with the story behind your business. Alexa skills and podcasting and kind of the flash briefing world becomes an important way to get your name out there and the character behind your business.
Well, voice is just exploding, and we love what voice is doing for the small businesses. And the Nashville Voice Conference is bringing in the small businesses and the companies that really want to embrace voice.
Your business needs an Alexa skill because you don't realize how communication is going to this device. How many of us pick up our phone and ask Siri or say, "Hey Alexa"? You can order a pizza now. Can you imagine the ability to just say, "Alexa, I want to order a pizza," and it'll pull up your favorite pizza shop?
It's really important to understand that you can be multitasking. We're expected, I think, to do even more in our jobs on a daily basis. And so if I'm doing something and I'm deep involved in the task, I can still say, remind me to do this. I think it's just where we're going. And it's really smart to use technology to make our lives easier.
For both Alexa and Google Home, it's going to be one of those things that you're going to need to have, like a website. I think in the early 90s, it was very hard to convince a company why they needed a website, but now you're not even a business unless you have one. So I believe it's going to be the similar kind of transition where you need to have one to be a business.
I think the reason for having all these different kind of voices as part of your company is it eliminates friction with your consumers. So if your customer is only using their phone, then yes, they're only going to be looking at the website, but the customers now are using their phone, they're using apps, they're using voice devices, so it creates less friction for the overall experience of your customers and future customers to interact with you by being available on these voice devices, because if you're not, someone else is going to be.
I learned a lot about what Alexa briefing is, how can you connect your podcast to that, and how really you can make your business a seamless automated industry. It's only 2 people who work in the nonprofit that I work with, and so anything that we can automate and anything that we can get a little assistance on really goes a long way in helping us be more productive in our community. So I really enjoyed the conference today.
Okay, everybody. The proof is in the data. We have basically over 500 million devices when you combine Alexa and Google Assistant. And the real reason I wanted to get everybody together today is to get a lot of friends together to really teach strategy and tactical implementation of specifically voice apps, Alexa skills, and Google Actions being the 2 main types of voice apps that we're going to talk about at the voice event today. You heard Audrey Wu in that video talk about basically an Alexa skill and a Google Action being like a website for your business. And that's what I really want everybody to take away from today. So we're going to get into, in this basically 5 hours, roughly 5 or 6 hours of content today, we're going to get into all of the ways to do that. And this really stems from a place for me of almost 20 years of my career of people asking me over and over again, how do I grow my business? And what they mean by that, when they elaborate on it, is how do I bring in more customers and how do I make more sales? And what you really need is you really need to differentiate your business. You need to give your target audience a reason to pick you over your competition. And that's what voice does right now at this point in time. Voice, getting on top of Alexa, getting on top of Google Assistant with these voice apps differentiates your business. And it can be done very, very strategically, but also very, very easily. And so I'm really passionate. I'm really excited to have everybody who's joined today. It means a lot. So thank you again. I want to thank our sponsors of the event. We have Project Voice as our lead sponsor for the event, the #1 event for voice tech and AI in America, coming up in 2021 in January. We have Studio Bank, an amazing group of people doing some amazing work out of Nashville, Tennessee. We have VoiceFlow, a great group of people doing amazing work around the world out of Toronto and other areas. We'll get into more about Studio Bank and VoiceFlow and Project Voice later. And we have Engage, who very much like VoiceFlow and the Voice Designer is just doing an amazing job helping businesses implement these voice apps and do it in a way where it's actually really going to help have an ROI and an effect on businesses. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here today. And without further ado, I want to introduce my co-host, QuHarrison Terry. QuHarrison does a lot. He's about to unmute himself, I can see. He does a lot of work. He's a future thinker. He's a master marketer. He works for Mark Cuban Companies, but he also runs several of his own businesses, including Trends Exchange, which is a online event platform, engagement platform, content platform. And QuHarrison is going to talk a little bit about voice as a future thinker, and maybe some of where voice is at right now and some potential gaps that have yet to be filled by voice, which to me really means where does the opportunity lie in voice? So QuHarrison, I think as soon as you unmute yourself, everybody should be able to see you. And actually, before I officially pass it over to you, Q, I'll go over like a little bit of etiquette for the day. So basically what we have, in case you haven't already noticed, is we just have a Zoom meeting as the voice event. And so everyone's going to stay muted. We're going to go through the agenda, and I'll walk everybody through the agenda and be the moderator as well. And we'll take some Q&A at different points in time. We'll do that through the chat. So go ahead and chat me, and if I don't answer right away, we will get to it. And you can chat at me privately in the Zoom chat, or you can just put everything out there. I highly encourage people to go ahead and use the chat because we definitely want to make this somewhat interactive, but we want to move through the program and the content as well. But we're also later on, so some of the sessions are pre-recorded. You'll probably be able to tell which ones are pre-recorded because you'll see me kind of queuing them up. And then some of the sessions are going to be live. We're going to have people coming in for actually some live panels. And so QuHarrison coming up here in a second, he's the first example of somebody coming in live. And so what I expect to happen is that when he starts talking, you should be able to see him. If you want to go into the gallery view or the full screen mode, you should see the person talking. So just trying to give you guys the best virtual conference experience here at the Voice event as far as Zoom goes. So QuHarrison, you good to go, man? You ready to give us some of your thoughts on voice?
Yes, of course. How you been, Paul?
I'm great. It's really, really good to have you. We met we met a while ago, but then we met face to face at Project Voice.
That's
and
true.
That was an amazing experience. Thanks to Bradley Metrock, who's here. He's our keynote speaker today, so we'll be hearing from him in a little bit.
Yeah,
and
Bradley's got all the views. I'm just gonna try to augment off some of his ideas.
You know, I think we're all trying to do that with each other, right? So
yeah.
You're trying to do that with Bradley. I'm trying to do that with you and other people. And so, yeah, so QuHarrison, we met at face-to-face at Project Voice, but we had been working with each other leading up to Project Voice. And I want to thank you for a lot of your help, a lot of your guidance, helping me with momentum for the Voice event. Really the only way that this thing can happen is through relationships. And so just thank you for being here today and for sharing your amazing thoughts on technology, the future, and voice. So I'll hand it over to you. Thanks again.
Wonderful. Well, there's a few things. I guess, Paul, before I jump into this, how long do we have? I know we're on a schedule.
Yeah, good question. So you have about 15 minutes.
Perfect. Alrighty. So this is going to be a fun 15 minutes for everybody that's on the chat. I've got a few asks. One, everyone, let's get familiar with the chat because that's going to be one of the few elements in which we can be interactive in this presentation. So I just dropped a yo in the chat. Go ahead, respond. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I know Paul is coming from Spain. I'm coming from Dallas, Texas, and we're going to be talking about voice. The topic of discussion today that I want to elaborate on is not specifically related to the Alexa platform or the Google platform, but voice is an extension of your digital presence. So we're in this era where it's post-COVID, the world's changed quite a bit. And I see a lot of the comments that are coming in. We've got a lot of people from Nashville, so shout out to the people holding it down out there. Chicago, I see you. Long Island. We got a Maryville, Tennessee, and Connecticut. And keep dropping your thoughts in the chat and just interact with me live. That's what we're going to do. This is the beautiful thing about doing some of these things. But jumping back to an earlier point that I was making, we are now in a place where post-COVID, we have two versions of ourselves. We have the physical version where, you know, we did the face-to-face networking thing. A lot of us may have been hopping on planes and traveling. This event, like it was originally planned, was supposed to be an in-person ordeal. That's no longer true. And we now live in this world where you have your physical self, which is kind of on the sidelines right now. Like, you know, all the networking, the way we used to do business is kind of transformed and changed. And now everyone's really scrambling to figure out how to do this digital thing. And one of the elements that I've been seeing not being talked about or discussed as much is the concept of digital presence. And one thing that you understand really, really well when you get fascinated by voice and just the voice ecosystem at large is digital presence is something that you have to kind of replicate in order for for that human interaction with the device of any type, for it to like really resonate. And what I'm really like looking forward to when it comes to the future of voice is how will people start to augment themselves through voice applications. I've seen some of the work. I know, Paul, you've been working with some people on this exact concept. And Paul, jump in, because I can't remember all the people, but there was the Metcon, right? What's it? Dan. Yeah. So
Dan Cox.
Yeah. So Dan Cox, like Dan Cox and Paul have been working on this for a while, but you know, this was something where we never really thought that the need and the desire would be today. And so I challenge a lot of people on this call to say like, hey, we're going to be at the Nashville Voice Conference all day. We're going to be thinking about how voice is changing our lives. There's a lot of exciting things on the tools at large, but utilizing this platform to educate and, you know, make an interactive classroom something that isn't just experienced through a virtual portal like on a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever the interface is. Maybe you can augment that experience where it can go offline and like your classroom can still kind of live in the cloud, but it's not only accessible through, you know, a two-way screen. That's some of the things that we need to be thinking about right now. And the people that are implementing that are the innovators and the pioneers that are going to really show the rest of us a way forward. If you're in the business setting and it's not necessarily the education space, you know, how do you do a team meeting that is more akin to, you know, one of the destination concepts that you might do? So, you know, when you do a team retreat and you go off, we really can't do a team retreat right now. You can't really build that morale. And knowing that, voice is a platform where you can still allow people the ability to participate and exchange ideas and really build upon some of the things that we would have gained through face-to-face and physical presence. And so on this idea storm that I've been having, I'm really thinking like, you know, one, how can we use short form audio to showcase and maybe do check-ins, but do so in a way where it's not as daunting as video. Not everyone's a great speaker in front of a computer screen, and not everyone will translate their physical skills. Like if you're a great connector or you're a great person that can read the room, like in a social environment, a lot of those skills don't translate over into the digital forum, right? I mean, even here, like I can't really tell beyond the chat how people are, you know, resonating with this conversation. And I think it's ridiculous to ask everyone, hey, turn on your videos, because you just don't know what a person's doing. It's not like we've come to one central place and kind of agreed to a forum. And so looking at the voice experience and like just where my head is at, just as a future thinker, is really in this realm of how can I extend my virtual presence? A few ideas, because I know we're almost at time, and I do want to take time for questions, and I do want to just build off this idea, because I think, you know, I'm not the only one with the ideas and concepts. We're here together as a collective. There's 32 people here in here, and I really want to use the powers of our hive mindset, because that's how we're going to move forward and really figure out some of the nuances in voice. So with that, I do want to close out on a few things. One, how I'm thinking about using and extending my presence through voice is looking at how I can augment presentations. So if the virtual stage is what we have, and everyone's been seeing PowerPoints for the last 20, 25 years now, it's time for us to start to think about how you can take that same time and energy, but maybe use a tool like the Voice Designer, or maybe use a tool like VoiceFlow and say, if I put a prompt on my presentation, well, can I have like something new and refined pop up, because the majority of people are going to be listening to you on mute anyway. And if they're not, it adds character. It's kind of like when someone's phone goes off in a meeting. Like, we miss those things. Like, humans aren't used to everything being perfect. And so some of that disruption and chaos almost needs to come back into our lives so that we can feel some bit of normalcy. And it's okay that we don't have it figured out just yet, per se, because this is literally day one. I know at Amazon, many of you, if you're familiar with the Jeff Bezos philosophy, Jeff Bezos has this theory that every day is day one. And so Amazon is constantly innovating and working as if they just started on this project today. And that's how they bring forth a lot of the projects that we know and love, from Amazon.com to AWS to even Alexa. And Paul, I think when we have about 10 minutes before you're going to kick me off stage, I do want to riff with you, because I think the beautiful thing about a conference is the interactivity concepts, where, it's not just a one-way streak. It really is the questions, the comments, the side conversations. And I'm curious your thoughts just on this virtual presence and how one can design their experience beyond the video and even the what we're doing here.
Well, I think definitely preparation is key. So I think you can do whatever. I think you can actually get as creative as you want and do whatever you want. I think you and I talked about doing some things on Alexa and Google Assistant related to the event, so that we would actually be bringing that experience into the event. We'll see how that pans out today. I think that having a virtual event on Alexa and Google Assistant like this, with the devices like the Echo Show and others that have screens, I think is a possibility to do. Probably simpler than people think. We have a lot of people on right now that are content creators on Alexa and Google Assistant. We'll hear from some of them later, like Julie Daniel Davis is one. She's one of my favorites. You and I met her at Project Voice, and Julie has a flash briefing. So, I mean, incorporating different things, content from your flash briefing into a virtual event, I'm sure is really possible. So, yeah, the list goes on and on.
Totally. Knowing that, the flash briefing was, again, a one-way mechanism to like augment yourself. I'm curious, because a lot of these devices, they do have microphones, and that could be controversial to some, but the fact is we've got, for most speakers, some type of array of microphones on them. And knowing that, what I haven't seen is, I always talk to the device, right? I'm talking to the Alexa and having an exchange with my device, but I'm not really ever doing that across devices. So it's not like I'm sending Paul a 30-second snippet through the Alexa device and hearing his response also on that same platform or somewhere else. And I think that we're at a point now where, if you had to do a team one-on-one check-in, maybe leaving your notes beforehand as audio dictations, having that optionality, it's a future that we're probably going to be living in the next 6 months to a year, because I don't see us going back to the office in the regular sense anytime soon. And we still need to figure out, how do we allow for information to be exchanged? And voice is a medium that has worked for thousands of years. Like, we're using voice even to communicate here. And like, Paul, to your example, like, what if the next version of this conference was an audio only experience? That's something that, I mean, it probably could happen. The latest social network that everyone's talking about right now is called Clubhouse. And it's really like an interactive podcast. It's just all audio based. There's no feed, there's no text, there's no instant messages. It's really just all an audio only experience. And that's what the world looks like in 2020. So just to riff off that, I do want to make room for questions. I see In the comments, I believe that, let's see, I'm gonna check in. Did I see something where someone said that they missed the side conversations? Oh, Dawn Avery. That's something where we really have to get creative and figure out how do we do the side conversations here. Paul, you got any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, totally. That is a tough one, and I think I've seen some virtual event platforms that are out there that have some really nice networking capabilities. There's definitely some things that like we're doing on the WordPress. We're using WordPress with just about everything that we do. And there's platforms where you can essentially make a virtual event platform out of a WordPress site. And you can use things like chats and forums and, social media type features where you can have friends and connections and groups and things like that. Those aren't going to replace the actual face-to-face side conversations at an event like we had last year. But to your point earlier, getting creative around and I think this is why it's important to talk about Alexa skills specifically, is because you can create Alexa skills out of blueprints, out of tools like VoiceFlow, Engage, or the Voice Designer, and you can actually have these conversations happening, going back and forth between people on the voice devices. And so I think that certainly for any conference, getting creative like that and making it fun, making it a little bit different is a way to, again, differentiate your conference, differentiate your business, and get people more engaged.
Paul, in your experience, I hear this all the time. Numbers. I mean, whether it be a project you're working on or whether it be even your own internal voice telling you, oh, those numbers aren't big enough because you see someone having 1 million, views on one platform or 10,000 likes on another. Voice isn't at that scale yet. I don't think, I have not seen that many voice experiences where the numbers are very large. What's your take on that?
Yeah, the numbers on the voice experiences themselves are not large. So if you were to look at the analytics in the Alexa developer console or the Google Actions console, for example, for a particular skill, you're probably not going to be blown away by the numbers. Now, Bradley Metrock, who's coming up next, probably knows off the top of his head some that have some huge numbers. And we've seen actually some of those people speak at Project Voice. So there are some. However, you're correct. You're not going to see the numbers.
I think the Bible app has a crazy number. Like anything related to weather or some games, those have crazy numbers, but they also have crazy marketing budgets, or they have a brand that allows them to go many places. I think that if you're being creative and you're just trying things, it's easy to get distracted, or I would say it's easy to lack motivation, right? When you see a number staying at maybe a few hundred.
Well, I think you said it really well earlier when you used the words digital presence, right? So my response to your question is it's less about the numbers and it's more about, if you don't have this piece of your digital presence, you're going to get left behind. You're going to your competitor, like Audrey and Dan Cox said it in the video at the beginning, your competitor is going to have it if you don't. And with tools that we're going to introduce you to today, it's silly not to do it because it costs next to nothing and they're super easy to use, these tools like VoiceFlow, the Voice Designer, Engage, and even Alexa Blueprints. So we'll have Jeff Blankenberg from Amazon at 1:30 later this afternoon, and he's going to talk probably about how to build some skills on some blueprints. So yeah, I think you're right. It's less about the numbers on the particular skill as the ROI, and it's more about integrating the skill into your overall digital presence to make your brand stronger.
Totally. And my last point here, to build off of that, it starts with this concept of, we're extending our digital presence. It's happening at the company level. It's happening now even at the individual level. And I would argue that in the old world, you can network, and networking would be a great hedge or some type of insurance for it'd be like career insurance, right? Like if you have a pretty strong network, if something unfortunate happens, you usually can bounce back to your network and, you know, make something else happen or occur within your life. The only hedge we have to that in this digital world really is your digital presence. So when you start to think about, you know, why should one person create content and why should I diversify the types of content? Well, you don't know if one person's only going to do an audio only experience. You don't know if a person learns better through video. You don't know if a person is more intellectual and they want to read, like, you know, a long form essay. And so you've got to take multiple shots in a lot of different areas and definitely be consistent in an area you're more comfortable with or you're more of an expert in. So if you are a wonderful video creator or a YouTuber, definitely create that consistent stream of YouTube videos. But to Paul's point on extending your digital presence, you want to elaborate on that through other means and experiences, because it creates some type of career insurance and just like presence that allows for people to find you organically, and then that can blossom into its own ordeal. So when it comes to Alexa or just voice in general, the way I look at it is now is the time to experiment. You've got a lot of R&D time. There's really no wrong answers here because the numbers are super small. The platform opportunities are super large, and it only takes one shot for you to land, and you could be that could be the difference between changing your business or changing your life, literally. And with that being said, Paul, I'm going to kick it back over to you. Bradley, what's up? I wish we were in person. I really do enjoy this, and people will hear from me a little bit later, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, QuHarrison. People are definitely going to hear from you a lot throughout the day, so I'm excited about that. And we've had some great action in the chat. We've got Bettina Pulliam, who's working with me at Data Driven Design in our apprenticeship program, says accessibility is another reason. And then Dawn Avery kind of seconds my my vote on small businesses. Just small businesses, like if you're an accountant or a lawyer or a dentist, or, you know, you run a children's ballet theater, whatever it is, like, you've got a competitor. And if you can show somebody that they can open up content about you on Alexa, that could be the thing. Like, I mean, some of us pick our accountant based on what NFL team the accountant likes, for example. So, you know, people are definitely going to consider picking your business over another business if you're creating that overall experience and you're doing things on these new platforms.